all for joining us here this evening for our Ask Me Anything with Roshaun Davis, an entrepreneur made at Sac State. My name's Cameron Law, and I'm the Executive Director of the Carlson Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Sac State. I'm joined by one of our team members, Arlene Miranda, who serves as our Administrative Systems and Operation Analyst. She's with the green background. Maybe she'd give a wave to all of you. For those of you that don't know, the Carlson Center serves as a regional hub and platform for providing approachable and accessible entrepreneurial education, community, and support to enable you as a startup founder to be able to explore and really go about launching your businesses. Our mission is to make innovation and entrepreneurship pervasive throughout the greater Sacramento region. And we believe if we work towards that mission, we can achieve a vision of really having the greater Sacramento region be this premier hub of regional innovation and entrepreneurship. And how we've gone about really operationalizing that mission and vision is to look at our support through what we call the entrepreneurial journey and really looking at supporting you along that whole continuum. And so we built it by looking at three core components, which are discover, build, and launch. And so discover's all about creating those on-ramps into that entrepreneurial journey. And that's where our program here today falls, which is part of our speaker series, where we hopefully can inspire you to take your next steps on your business, but also having that knowledge recycling within our community from successful entrepreneurs and really going about learning from their past experience, both the successes, but also some of those challenges that they faced in getting started. We partnered this evening with the MLK Junior Center at Sacramento State, and I wanted to give Dr. Marceline Watson-Derbigny an opportunity to say a few words. So if you wanted to talk about the center and this event.
Good evening and welcome on behalf of Student Academic Success and Educational Equity Programs in the MLK Center. Thank you for joining us on this evening. On behalf of the center, we thank you for attending the Ask Me Anything event. This event would not be possible without the great support and leadership of Cameron Law, Executive Director of the Carlson Center. A special thanks to our keynote speaker for gracing us with your presence. We are excited to hear your story. We invite everyone to enjoy this great event, and again, welcome. Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the partnership and really excited to have all of you in the space today and to hear from Roshaun as well. So before we jump into the main portion of the event, just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping. We would love if you remained on mute during just the initial Q&A portion. So during the recording, we have Roshaun's face, not these names popping in back and forth. And one kind of just user experience component is if you put your view into speaker view, you can do that by going in the top right-hand corner of your screen and clicking view and then clicking on speaker view, and it'll give you the best user experience. So we will give you a second to do that. Hopefully you hopped into that view. I wish I could control it, but I don't have that ability. But jumping into our session here, I'm just really excited about the conversation we're going to have with Roshaun. I had the pleasure of chatting with him prior to the event a few weeks ago, as well as just kind of researching on the web about all the work that he's done over the last decade. And one of the things that I pulled from this conversation, as well as the research, was really his love for this city and the creative sector. For me, I believe that this love for this region is really at the core of his success and his niche of combining a passion for place and creativity. And so as we jump in, I just wanted to share his bio and provide some context of who he is, and then we'll jump into the Q&A. And so Roshaun is the CEO and co-founder of Unseen Heroes. Roshaun was recently named a 40 under 40 honoree by the Sacramento Business Journal. And Unseen Heroes is an award-winning events agency responsible for some of the region's biggest public events, including Gather, Oak Park, and the Midtown Farmers Market. Roshaun has a rare talent for brand building, strategic focus, and program implementation, and has been recognized by countless clients in the public and private sector, from local backyards and neighborhoods all the way to the national level. Roshaun has a unique combination of skills of marketing, brand development, promotion, advertising, publicity, special event execution, and product seeding skills. He is known and respected by his peers and effortlessly cultivates and sustains business and personal relationships. He utilizes his creative talents to help others discover their unique strengths and gifts, which is his life's passion. For him, seeing others flourish and thrive by living their ideal lives with career is everything that he would wish for. And so one of the things that I found in just kind of researching was this quote that he shared in an article. And I just believe it really encompasses his work and his passion. And what he stated was, "We believed in the city in a way not a lot of people did 10 years ago. and to see that city actually living up to the belief that we put in, that energy that we put in, that love that we put in, that's amazing. And that was one of the things he's most proud of the work he's done over the last 10 years. And I couldn't speak more truly just in looking through what he's been able to accomplish and just the impact he's made in this region. And so without further ado, just kind of wanted to jump into the questions here with you. And the first one's pretty open-ended, just want to get to know you further. But in kicking us off, would love to have you share with us a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are here today.
Oh, word. Well, thank you everybody for having me, and hopefully I'll share some things that are insightful. I have a little kid knocking at my door right now. It seems like as soon as I start talking, like they just jump out of nowhere. Okay, so forgive me. Other thing, Sejan, I see you're on the call. Shout out to you. I haven't talked to you in a long time, dude. Yeah, so where do I start? I think for me, I start in the space of just creativity. Like, I've always been creative, even in like elementary school, I was a writer, journalist, always used my knowledge in that way. And then in the artistic side, once I got to high school, I started to learn how to put that together in rhymes and started doing spoken words and things like that. And from there, I just built on that, met a couple of fellas, and we started a hip hop group called Righteous Movement. And we started rapping and started doing shows. And what I found is, this talent that I had for these words turned into something more, which was like that performance side. And so, we started doing performances and shows and things like that, and really loved it. Really got a lot of footage, my footing in there, as in, just this is what I want to do. I want to merge, this side of my art with this side of my creativity with words and make it work to where we're doing, in the basic scheme of it is I wanted to be a musician, but what I found was that there was not an industry here in Sacramento for that. And at the time I had my son, he was probably about 2 at the time. He's 19 now, which is crazy to think. So I didn't want to move to LA and move to a different industry. And so that's kind of where Unseen Heroes started, because I saw a hole in the market in this space of representation and education for musicians at that point. That's what it started as. And that's kind of how Unseen started. I would go to different shows and different musicians would say like, yo, how are you guys doing what you're doing? And I'd be like what do you mean? Like, oh, you're on tours. And it's like, well, I just put together the tours. I would call people and say, hey, do you want to book my band? And they're like, oh my God, like that's a talent. I'm like, I guess, okay, cool. And then they'd be like, yo, how did you get like into this magazine? And it was like, I just called and I said, hey, do you want to cover my band? This is like a dope band that you should cover. And like, I would sell it in that way. And so then they would cover us, and then we had like press. And, then it was like, oh, okay, got it. Press kit. So then I created a press kit and I would send that stuff out. And what I slowly started to find was that a lot of the musicians and things like that didn't have the capacity to do those things. And at that time I was going to Sac State, and I had my state job as well. And so I was like, you know what? I think if I could free my time, and really looked at my time as that value, if I could free my time and not work for the state and get someone to pay me at least what I'm making at the state, that actually frees up all of my time to be in this space. And so that's when I looked at Maritza. That was about 2008. Maritza's my wife. I said, hey, I think we should start like a company called Unseen Heroes, and we can represent these people who need PR, need booking, need management, just need to get out to a larger audience and do it in a way that is sustainable for them, and then also make them money. That was the other thing, is like, we used to see a lot of people who were very, very talented leave the city as soon as they could because it was one of those things that you had to do. And so that was kind of where that idea came in of just like, you know what if we started showing love to the city and doing some of these things that we go other cities to do here. And that's when we started to play, I say play a bigger game, but we started to play a bigger game of like, all right, it's not just my band, it's not just these cool musicians, it's also artists, it's also designers, it's also makers, it's what now I verbalize is like it's the whole creative industry that really attracts you to different places and different cities. I mean, that's why you go to different cities to, experience some cool, tasty food, or some dope art somewhere else, And so when I started to think about it in that lane, it was like, okay, we know a lot of good, creative, talented people. Let's start producing events and different experiences here in Sacramento. And that's kind of been our trajectory since then, is just bringing that creative side to Sacramento and showcasing it in a way that is very tasty to other places, and so I think it's one of those things, like a double-edged sword, right? Like we used to produce all of these things in the beginning, like 2010, 12, 13, 14, 15, and the whole thing was like, yeah, we want to attract other people to the city, like, yeah. Whereas now in 2021, it's like, oh no, like everybody from the Bay Area is moving here, like this, this isn't what we thought, and so it's just interesting to be on this journey. But that's truly how it started, and kind of where we are now.
I love that. There's I'm glad I left it open ended because you got to give me a lot to chew on there. And I think the first thing that kind of comes to mind was when you think of an entrepreneur as really solving a problem, and for you it felt like you kind of start off by solving your own problem, right, and then identifying other opportunities within the creative community to say, hey, we can actually solve this problem and create value. One of the things that I wanted to jump to was that kind of pivotal shift when you were studying at Sac State and you had a state job. What was that like, switching and saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to take the risk and be this entrepreneur and start to build? Because that's not just a light bulb, hey, I'm going to go do that tomorrow. So would love to get in your head during that decision, and kind of did you seek out people? Obviously Maritza was one of the the partners you reached out to, but what was that experience like for you, and how did you navigate it?
I like it to like being kicked out of the nest. That's what it was like as a baby bird being kicked out of the nest, because it wasn't truly that I just made a decision and was like, hey, I'm gonna go out on my own. It was actually when the state cut all of the budgets in 2008, right? When they let go of like a lot of like the lower end people. But subsequently around that time, we had started Unseen and we were already doing events for clients. It was just, I had both hats on, right? And so when I'll never forget, because my boss came in and she's just like so like distraught, and because she has to fire me, right? And so she's like, Roshaun, like it's not me, it's the budget, and it was just like, don't worry about me. Actually, if you look at the Sacramento Bee, here's this thing, this bicycle film festival. I'm producing that, and they're covering it. You should come out this weekend and like actually see what I really want to do. Thank you for giving me the lane to do what I exactly want to do. See you later. I'll never come back to this place. Love you, gone. And that's truly how it was. It wasn't like this thing that I pondered on, or like, it was just, I always say like that was the kick in the pants that I needed in order to like really get out there. Because I feel like if that wasn't the case, I would have waited longer and still had to do this split energy of working this full-time job or part-time job, and then trying to make my passion thrive on the other hours. And, with going to Sac State, so it was like I was a student, well, I was a father, first of all, you know, or no, I'll back it up. I was myself, first of all. That was that, that's a lot. I should have done a little bit more self-care than in that sense. So I was myself, first of all, then I was a father, then I was a student, then I was, working, and then I had this idea to start this company, and was working on starting this company. But even also I was fully in a band, right? And we were had a very like laborious like practice, tours in the studio, like all of these different things. So I had a lot going on in the first place, so it was kind of like one of those things where it's like that's one of the things I would love to let go, and that gave me the kick in the pants to do it. So yeah, it wasn't just like like a clear cut decision, kind of, but
No, yeah, it seemed like it gave you some, obviously some additional time to dedicate, and probably that, increased capacity you had to focus and, unlock your creative juices versus, just dedicating what, I don't know how many hours you're working for the state position, but trying to manage all of those other things. I can see where, your ability to be creative after leaving the nest, for lack of a better term that you
yeah.
used. And I love that.
It was kind
And
of like burning the ships too. There's it's in a book I read, but this guy talked about burning the ships, right? And so he gave the analogy of, these guys going to battle, they pull up on the shore, and the captain says, burn the ships. And, some of the people were like, wait, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean burn the ships? Like, how are we going to get back? And it's like, we're not going back. We're not failing. That means we have to stay here or we die. And that's kind of what it did for me. It was like when she let me go, when the state let me go, that was the burning of the ship for myself personally. And I remember walking out. I used to work in the Pyramid Building in West Sac. I remember walking out of that building and being like, I'll never go back to a real job again, come hell or high water, and that was truly like my determination, my grit, and just my hustle coming in of just like, this is that opportunity, do not mess it up, like, go.
I love that. That's a Art of War, Sun Tzu.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a great quote for sure. Yeah, burn the boats, and don't look back, because there is no going back. So I love that. But it feels like, or it sounds like, when you left that building, there was kind of this sense of freedom in some way to say, hey, now I can go and execute on this, and really build what I envision and see. One of the things, just kind of as I was, looking through some of, your website and some of the, videos in your TED Talk, you talk about this place called the Third Space. And for me, this was a newer concept to me. And so I'd love to kind of learn a little bit more of what that means and how you've gone about building that in our city and region, and really making an impact in those third spaces.
Yeah, for sure. So it's this concept where, we truly have like three spaces that we operate in. So the first is home, right? And so, a lot of us have been spending a lot of time in our first space for the first time in a long time, right? And then the second space is work, right? You would spend 40 plus hours at work. So that's your second space of which you operate. And then the third space is coffee shops, restaurants, when you go out to, Target, Walmart, wherever you're shopping at, and then events and spaces like that. And so it's like this place where you come and you connect on a friendship level with friends. So, hey, meet me for coffee, or hey, you want to go to this event, and you're building in that third space, right? And so that's truly the concept of the third space, and understanding that. And I'm a book nerd, so I read a lot of different books. I couldn't tell you the title of some of the books that I read, but I read that in a book. And so just understanding that concept, and saying like, what, yeah, like when you're in a third space, it should be special, because you're going out of your home, you're going out of your second space of work, which is work, and then you're going into this space to truly connect. And that's what you're going there for, right? You're going there to connect with a friend and have a cup of coffee, or, you know, eat a good meal together. So understanding that space and how to make that space magical really is what we started to focus on, and kind of like just harness and embrace and innovate, right? And so with Unseen, we always say like, we have to touch the five senses in these experiences that we create. You know, we want to make sure we indulge all of those five senses. So as we're designing these different concepts, these different experiences, whether it be a retail experience, or whether it be an event experience, whether it be, you know, a private, you know, session, like whatever it may be, it's always like, hey, what are people seeing, touching, tasting, feeling, and hearing? And how do we make each of those unforgettable, you know? And so that's truly like the backbone of what we do, is try to create unforgettable experiences. So for years to come, you really don't forget when you walk into an Unseen Heroes produced experience. And
Love
so, yeah, that's the third space.
I love that, and thank you for sharing. That's I will definitely pull on that knowledge as I move forward. And so, one of my thoughts as you're just kind of sharing more about the third space, I couldn't help but think about our current situation. Right, we have home and work, which is now a one space, and the coffee shops, and you know, everything being delivered to us. So I'm curious, one, from like a futuristic standpoint, where do you kind of see the future of these spaces? But also in the current situation, how has that kind of affected you and Unseen Heroes, and how might have you pivoted and innovated during this time of the pandemic?
Yeah, that's been the interesting. We've definitely pivoted, right? But I think to answer your first question, we will always need community. We will always need to commune with other people, whether it is through this digital space or, you know, through the physical space. That's something that will never go away. Like, humans need to be around other humans, you know, for emotional reasons, mental health, you know, like all of these different reasons. So I just hold that energy and hold that space, and know that one day we'll be together again in the middle of the streets having good times. Might be masked up, which is healthy. I don't mind, you know, but you know, so I know that is going to come back, and that's the energy that we hold, and we just stay there. You know, it's not like a freak out, like, oh my gosh, like this is never gonna end. It will, you know, and we'll be back in that space. So it might be in a 2.5 space, because I don't know if work and home will change a lot, because people are learning that these old systems no longer work, right? Where you go to work for 40 hours and then you're at home for 8, and you know, so I think that will change a little bit, but the human desire and need to connect with other people will never go away. So we always kind of hold space for that. And then so our pivot was truly to pause, right? Like, we paused and didn't panic, didn't freak out. I'm very heavy into like meditation and, you know, personal development, and really being in tune with yourself and your emotions, and that goes all the way up to like the stars, planets in the sky, all the way down to earth. So, you know, for me and my team, it was just like, you know what, like, let's take this moment to pause and just really observe what's happening, you know? And so we spent a lot of time in that space having conversations and just mentally checking in on our team members, like, how are you doing? How are you going through this, you know? And that pause allowed us to not panic and see ways forward that maybe we wouldn't have if we would have panicked and just reacted, you know? But one of the things that I was always mindful of, even pre-pandemic, was I would stand in the middle of our events and like different places in our events. I was always the observer in our events, right? Like, I would just stand in different places and just watch the interactions that were happening, watch how people connected, watched like what was going on. And it was always the question in my head was like, how in the hell did 3,500 people come out to Oak Park in the middle of the street and know about this thing, you know? And for me it was like, got it. So maybe like 2014, 2015, it started to make sense of this offline and online experience. And so I walked through it, and it's like, okay, so and so would say, oh, I found this on social media, and it's like, okay, that's an online thing. And then they came offline, and then they connected and had the experience there. Or it was like, hey, my friend told me that I should come to this thing. It's like, okay, that's truly like an online thing too, because that's word of mouth. Got it. And then it was like, oh, I heard about it through an emailer. And so what I started to find out and share with my team is like, hey, there's an offline and online experience that's happening, right? Like either somebody walks past and sees the event, and so we need to capture them and say, hey, if you like this experience, you will like another experience that we do more, sign up on our email list. And then they would sign up on our email list or follow us on social media or do any of that. And then that put them in that online world. And then we were very mindful of that online world and then push them offline. So since 2014-ish, like that's really been our MO of just like mastering the online space and then the offline space. So when the pivot came, and as we started to like realize like, oh, we've been playing this online game. We already have our online retail shop set up. We already have an email list of like 19,000 people. We have, you know, an Instagram that had, you know, all together through all of the Instagrams, we had like 20,000 people that followed us. Got it. Like, let's just switch and turn on some of this content online. And so, you know, we worked on different content that, you know, would just do well online. And so we did like a gather at home, and we relied on some of, you know, we asked some of our you know, community to call in, and we did like this whole virtual experience of a DJ like playing what he would have played at gather in the set, you know. And then inside of it, you know, you had drop-ins of people being like, hey, you're now tuned in to gather at home, you know, thanks for rocking with us. And it was felt like a live experience, but it wasn't really a live experience. But then that got like, I think it's up to like 15,000 views or something like that. And it was like, oh, okay, I get it. Like digital is a way bigger place. It's a way bigger place for us to play. Let's continue to play in this playground a little bit more while we can. And so then we turned to like our clients and we said, hey, we've already been doing this and we can teach you how to do this. And so then we started producing some virtual events for our clients. And then we got into truly like when we first started, so jumping back a little bit, when we first started, we did public relations design, marketing, and events. And when we probably like 2 years in, one of Maritza's mentors was just like, hey, you guys are offering too much. You need to like cut it down. What people really know you for is like doing events. And she said, you'll never win out like these big contracts with your PR side because you have big international PR agencies that are in Sacramento. You're not going to win out like, you know, these marketing contracts right now. And this is 2 years in, right? And she's like, you know, you have big marketing, you know, houses that are just satellites here in Sacramento and they're going after it. And so she's like, but what there's not is a really good event agency, and you guys can be that. So fold everything in and you can still offer that on the inside, but then as you push out, it all becomes streamlined. And that was one of those things that really I thought was cutting off like, you know, just like our arms because we were offering these things, and it was like, man, we're getting like $200 over here, we're getting $300 over here, like I don't want to cut that. And it became like what I thought was going to be cutting off our arm, it was actually cutting off an anchor for us, because then we could come to people and say, you know what, we're an events agency, and people were like, oh, got it, I know what you guys do now. Instead of like, yo, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, we just focused on like our core offering. And so when the pandemic hit and we're talking to our clients, it's like, you know what, actually, now that our core isn't events anymore, let's just open up and let you guys know what else we do. So we do this, we do this, we do this. And clients were like, oh, that's what we need. We need digital advertisements. Like, got it. Okay, you guys can do that. You guys can do all the creative. Oh, I love your creative for all of the events. You guys do that in-house and you do it for me. And it was like, yeah, we'll do it for you. And so then we started to get into there. And that's kind of where we are right now, is like, you know, we're creating campaigns that for our clients are, you know, now on the billboards, you know. So like the Sac County COVID collab, I don't know if anybody has seen any of those ads, but we created all of those ads and they're everywhere right now. But we help them create the brand for that. We help them create the website, and we help them create all of the assets that are like on the sides of billboard or on the sides of buses, bus ads and billboards right now. So that was kind of our pivot, was just shifting into that space, that digital space more and more.
Wonderful. I love the way you looked at your community, both online and offline, and obviously, you know, you cultivated that community in person, but through, you know, mediums such as social media and, you know, other types of vehicles. But then once, you know, the pandemic hit, you're able to convert it back, and you just had that kind of cohesion with all of that community to be able to maintain that. And then another thing that I think was really salient point was when you narrowed that niche and really focused on, you know, what I would call your value proposition, right? And really building that loyalty with your customers over that period of time, where you focused on the event agencies. And then, you know, when the pandemic hit, you said, hey, you know what, we actually can create value in different ways as well. And they already knew what you could do from the event side. And so you had that loyalty and trust with them. So I love hearing that. And, you know, I think it's a great point for our audience here. So keeping us moving forward, and, you know, one of the areas is, you know, I feel like you're a natural storyteller, and you know, obviously having studied journalism, we have a number of students, faculty, and staff, and then obviously community members here as well. And I'm wondering if and how you've leveraged your degree at Sac State and kind of the community and being an entrepreneur. And part of that is being an entrepreneur something you always saw in terms of being creative and creating, or was that something that kind of you fell into, obviously, in creating, you know, seeing the opportunity and those types of things? So would love to kind of get in your mindset of that.
Yeah. I think when I think back, I'm very big on language, right? And really understanding what language can create for you. And I think I've always been an entrepreneur. I just didn't have the language when I was younger to really understand what the entrepreneur is. But I've always had this feeling that, you know, I was going to create something that would help others and do for others. And, you know, and it wasn't the language, it was more of a feeling that I just would always chase. And so it wasn't until I had the courage to be like, hey, I think we should start our own agency, that it came to be like, not even then, I didn't even think of myself as like an entrepreneur at that point, because I really didn't know the language. It was just like, hey, I think we should do this thing. And I think as I continue to progress, and as I pick up more language, and as I pick up more different languages too, because we all speak different languages, I start to understand more and more who I am, what I am, and what I do, right? But I think entrepreneurship it's a feeling. It's a knowing that you are going to do, sorry guys, you are going to do something bigger and greater, and have this problem, or have the solution for this problem. You know, just like some people know, like, hey, I'm just going to go get a 9 to 5 and I'm going to work that, and I'm going to do these other things in these other areas. I feel like, you know, entrepreneurship is truly a feeling, you know, and you move forward with it, and you might bump your head on one thing, but then you'll be back and try something else. Like, that's the true feeling of entrepreneurship. And I feel like I've always been in that space, just didn't learn the language until recently, really. And I'm still exploring like what it truly means to be an entrepreneur, you know. I grew up, it was just like you hustle, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's like, oh, that's what it is. Got it. I know how to hustle. But now I'm like, oh, no, I know how to entrepreneur. Oh, got it. Okay, cool. So that's that part. I think from the journal side and the degree side, yeah, I literally just had a conversation with a young gentleman who came into our new HQ. And he was a journalist. He is a journalist for the State Hornet right now. And, I was like, so we were talking about his degree, which is journalism, and he asked me the same thing. And it's like, yeah, I definitely still use my degree, not necessarily in the technical sense, but I love like having conversations, asking people questions and learning about people. And I think at the base level, that's what a journalist does. It's like we want to hear the story first and foremost, right? And then we want to tell that story. And for me, like, truly, if I think about it as far as characters go, like, that was Sacramento to me, right? Like, I wanted to hear the story of Sacramento. And then I started dating Sacramento. And then it was like, you know what? You're actually really great. I'm going to tell everybody about you. And so then it went to like, everybody love your city. And then even in music is like, I would see just so much talent in these musicians that were rocking with us. And, some of them are outside of the pandemic, like touring the world, and they're straight from Sacramento, touring with big bands and, legendary, iconic musicians that are from here. And it's like, you guys are dope. Let me help tell your story. And I think that that's always been with me, and that's truly the space that I exist in. And so even now, just today, I was having a conversation with Faith McKinney. She's the founder of the Black Artist Fund, and we were sitting in HQ, and we were just talking about the different pieces of the industry of art. And it's the same thing. Like, you see some dope art, and you're just like, you're really dope. No one knows about you. Let's tell your story. Let's get you out there. Because certain people are just good at what they do, but they're not good at telling their story and getting it out to the masses. And I think for me, that's just like the core of what I do, is just getting to learn about new people and then sharing with new people that these new people are great is truly my gift.
Well, I think it directly points to the name of the company, Unseen Heroes, right? And telling their story and getting that out there. I love that. So some of the things I'm pulling from that just last question was, one, I love the topic around entrepreneurship as a feeling. I think that's something really unique, and just knowing that you wanted to see into the future and really create a solution that made an impact, and that you never maybe really had the language until more recently. And one of the things I'm tying that to is just the association of you loving to read, right? And not necessarily that you just read around entrepreneurship, but there's all of those languages that come together when you start to read, bringing up, tying burning the boats to entrepreneurship, right? It was like, when that was written, it was about going to war, and not necessarily entrepreneurship. But I love that component. And one of the things, and I spoke earlier about, was just your passion for Sacramento and the love for it. And I love the way you put it, was dating Sacramento and telling everyone about it. And this leads me into my next question was, one of the things that, I've been deeply attracted in kind of hearing your story was this love for Sacramento. And I've really tied it to community building. And I think entrepreneurship is key to, having a love for a particular place. And we actually, during our Global Entrepreneurship Week back in November, we had Ian Hathaway, who's the author of Startup Community Way. But I only bring him up because in the book, they talk about topophilia. So a love for place and coming from a desire to improve one's community. And I feel like you certainly embody that work in its context to how you go about doing that. And so my question to you is, I'd love to learn, is there something that you always felt, or is this something that you've really grown through your experience in engaging different communities throughout the region or throughout the cities?
Yeah, for me, I'll have to say no. I did not always feel like I loved Sacramento. I feel like, when you grow up in a place, you want to get out and you want to explore. And everywhere but where you are is cool, and you want to get to. And I was the same way, you know. One of the things that really grounded me here is I had my son when I was 20. And so that really truly did ground me here, because before that, I was just like, you know, as soon as I can, I'm getting out. You know, my best friend went to USC and I was like, I'm right behind you, bud. Here I come, you know. And so I think up until that point, it was like, okay, like I'm out. I don't like this place. It's not cool. And when I had my son and just realized, like, you know what, like I can't just get up and go, and I'm not the type of person to just like not raise my kid, like, you know. So I was like, up, guess I'm here. So we're gonna start the party here because we can't take the party, you can't go to the party elsewhere. And that's truly when I started to like really date Sacramento, you know. And I wrote like a Sac B article on that, like dating your city, and it's truly like what I did. And you know, I would just go around to different areas and just chill and just see what was there, you know. Took a stroll around along the river. I was like, yo, you know, actually we do have a nice little riverfront, okay. And stopped taking the city for granted, and just truly started to love it, you know. And that just continues to develop and to continues to grow. Yeah, so that's my love. I love.
I love that. Yeah, I had a similar experience of growing up in the Sacramento region. It was definitely not where I was like, yeah, I want to, you know, it was kind of always where you wanted to come back and maybe raise a family. But, you know,
Oh,
I
no,
feel the
I was
same
out.
thing now. But no, I deeply love that. And Mariah's throwing the hearts in there because she knows I love the city and region as well. And, you know, one of the things that I am grabbing a hold of from what you shared was looking at when you had your son was, well, I want to make this place better and improve it, right? And bring the party to Sacramento. So I love that. So I have two questions left, and it looks like we have a little bit of time. So wanting to make sure we have some Q&A from the participants as well. So the next one is, you've shared with us a lot of your history about Unseen Heroes and the success and impact you've had. I'd love for you to share what's next for Unseen Heroes.
Yeah, so if there's anything that 2020 has taught us as a company, it's stay in the moment and move from here. You know, so for us, like right now, what we're working on is just really structurally and organizationally, like understanding what we do more. And I think we talked about this on our initial call, where, you know, this idea of just doing some cool stuff for the city has turned into so many different iterations of this company and this platform that we've built. So where now, you know, we're looking at it as this, you know, incubator and accelerator of different entrepreneurs, right? And you know, what we found over this pandemic time was like the time to step back and think about, there's been a lot of people that have come through Unseen that have gone on to do really amazing things, whether it's being in Whole Foods, whether it's owning their own restaurant, whether it's, you know, now traveling the world with their product, like so many different things. And it's like, oh, okay, like I see where people come to us and they say, hey, we have this idea, and we can connect them with the right people and help them grow and nourish. And so that's been one of the things that we've been thinking about more and more as we kind of move through this new space. And then just staying ready and getting ready and sharpening the saw for when events and things come back online. That's going to be one of those things that we're ready for, and just, all right, hit the ground running. And so we've been really perfecting our craft in that way. And then also just trusting ourselves more and producing content without asking for permission. So we turned what was Display California, which is our store on 35th and Broadway. So for the last 7 years, that's been a retail space that we created, kind of the same idea. Those are these makers and designers that we were dealing with that only were at our events. And we said, hey, what if you had a storefront? Would you have your products there? And if we created a store. And so we had a store called Display for 7 years now. But, you know, with the pandemic, we moved our office back into the store and created this whole entire new experience. And the experience right now is called Melanin. And so it's an ode to Black History Month, but then also just what we did inside internally with, Unseen was, all of us had conversations, and these tough conversations, right? You're having like a global pandemic and the breakdown of like these man-made structures and idealisms that have been around for hundreds of years that are literally like breaking down in front of us. Then you have like the biggest civil rights movement happening because everybody's not busy and running around, but they have this, they're at home and they see, this Black man get killed, and so there's that energy there too. And then, so that then becomes part of it. And so for us, like, we're having these conversations and we're watching these things. And so now with these concepts, we're kind of pushing those boundaries and exploring those different conversations. And so the concept that we have right now is called Melanin. And it's truly like this idea of like, what did America get wrong about melanin? Like for me, like I think about from a point of like, my skin tone is not a barrier for me. It's not a box that you can check me in. It's actually very powerful, and so I never really played to the idea of what America would think of me in that way, right? But we need to have those conversations because as we see through this pandemic and all of these different things, like this is truly what's happening if you're really paying attention. It's like we didn't have conversation for so long and we let these other structures run us for so long that now that they're breaking down, like we got to have conversations, and some of them are tough. And so, we have this, that's kind of like the core of what we're doing as a company, and using our HQ, which is on 35th and Broadway, to really expand on that and say, how do we have that conversation through an artistic lens? And so we teamed up with a group, it's the SAC Dance Lab. And so they created this dance, right? That was this idea of melanin and made with melanin. And then we teamed up with a photographer to take images, and that's his artistic interpretation of made with melanin. And then we're doing like clothing. So we're doing all these things that we naturally would do for our clients inside of the space, but centering them around like some tough conversation pieces. And that's what we'll continue to do throughout this year, and talk about, like, one of the ones that we're going to talk about is strength, and how in America, strength, it's really equated to men, like, men are strong, where truly like women are way stronger than men. You know what I mean? Like, let's just call it what it is. And so, but that's going to be a tough conversation for some people to have. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, come on, get out of your feelings, get out of your emotions, step into more of your feminine side and really understand, like, women give birth, like. And so those are going to be the conversations that we have over this year. And that's kind of the space that I'm excited for, is to have those conversations, but then do it in a creative way and collaborative way. We're teaming up with artists and musicians and all of the creative field people to do their interpretation of these things.
I love that, Roshaun, and I love you used step out of your feelings, but I feel like step into the feelings.
Yes,
Into the feelings will hopefully get us to that conversation. But I think just what you're sharing around the project of Melanin, it brings me back to you taking that pause with your team and really giving yourself that space to have a conversation and looking at the impact that you want to have. And I also am tying it to you're utilizing different mediums to have that conversation, whether that be through, the retail shop and the things that you're selling there, to dance with the SAC Dance Lab, and then curating conversations in different places and spaces. And so just love the impact that you're having there. And then I'm also pulling partly, you mentioned learning as a team and really having that kind of organizational learning and seeing how you're continuing to foster that innovation and entrepreneurship in our region. And how, I think partly as an economic development approach, right, you're building from within with these entrepreneurs, but you're also creating a space that's attracting people to our community and continuing to grow. So couldn't speak more highly of the impact that you're making. So the last question I have is one that I always like to end on, and it's a question that hopefully serves you. And so what can we as a community here tonight do to support you in Unseen Heroes?
think, I think directly, I mean, it's obviously, go to our website, sign up for our email list so you can stay in the loop. Crazy shenanigans happened over the pandemic where we lost two of our Instagram accounts, long story. But you can follow us on Instagram, it's Unseen Heroes HQ. But truly like doing that, and then, just coming out to support our new HQ. So it's on the corner of 35th and Broadway. We're dealing with technology, and so we have NFC tagging. So you don't even have to come into the space. You can actually just tap your phone, and it'll send you to different websites so you can shop from the window. So we're taking window shopping to like a whole other level. And then the other thing, I mean, and if anybody on here, I open it up, starting March 1st, we're gonna start doing private tours of our HQ. So anybody on this call, feel free to reach out to me, send me an email, and we'll set up a private tour so you can experience the space and we can walk you through all of the stuff. But that would be a few ways to kind of support.
Awesome. So if I got it, it was go on to the Unseen Heroes website and subscribe to the email list. Also follow the Instagram account, Unseen Heroes HQ, and then support the physical space you have off 35th and Broadway. Sounds like a unique window shopping experience. So definitely we'll have to go about doing that. And then, if you're interested in tapping into a private tour, to reach out through probably the website or something. So I will now open it up to questions from our participants here, our audience. Feel free to raise your hand, or if you want to unmute yourself, we can just bring the question in that way as well. So we can bring them in multiple ways. I know there's got to be some questions. We got thank yous. They love what you had.
You always have to allow for the awkward silence where people muster the courage to be the first one to ask the question.
Well, that's why I invited you, Mariah.
Well, I just want to say I jumped in late. I had a meeting run over, but even what I've heard, I can't wait to see the replay. And you've already warmed my heart, and I needed it after this long day. I think we can all use some warmed hearts that we can send out to Texas.
Oh, yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Yes. Yeah.
So it looks like Luke has a raised hand. If you want to ask your question, go for it.
Hi, Mr. Davis. I just had a question as far
Mr.
as
Davis. No,
well, Roshaun. No, it's,
okay,
hey,
cool. I was like, is my dad in here or something? No.
Hey, whatever you want to hear, bro. But I was going to say, I have a small business on IG, and I sell vintage nostalgia, vintage clothing, and things like that. So my question for you, thank you. My question for you would be, I've been doing this for 2 years. What do you think I can do to grow the page? Again, I sell on Instagram. That's my main priority. And then I'll sell on Depop as well.
Yeah.
Any tips or things like that?
Yeah, for sure. How much are you spending on like Instagram ads for marketing?
So I don't do Instagram ads. Is that something that I should start looking into?
100%. So, and this goes for anybody who wants to follow me, but the Spiritual Homie on Instagram, that's actually me. So during this time of the pandemic, my Facebook account got hacked and deleted. And so it took down my personal Facebook page, my personal Instagram page, and then my business page for Unseen and my business page for Display California. So I decided to play a bigger game and start fresh, pour it out and do it again. So I started the Spiritual Homie in May, right?
Spiritual Homie is just like a page.
It's an Instagram page. So it's called the Spiritual Homie. And I just share like conversations that I'll have. Somebody will say something. I'll be like, oh, the homie just said that. Okay. The homie said blah, 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 blah. And I share it out. But I share that with you to say, like, I started that account in May and it's already up to 14,000 like followers that are actively engaged. Like the presence of that page gets on average like 900 likes plus. Some have 3,000 likes on it, right?
Okay.
But it was only through doing what I know, which is actually marketing. So what I do is I'll do just different spurts of like promoted posts, right? For like $10 a day for 7 days. So I'm spending like $70, right, a week, and I just promote one of the posts, and you're able to pick your demographics and who you really want to target, and it really works. Like,
Okay.
it's living proof. It doesn't have to be a lot. Like I said, $70, you spend that on lunch a couple days a week, right? And so you really have to do that in order to get your page those views and get connected with the right people. And Facebook definitely and Instagram definitely have mastered that. So that's what I would say to you is, just set up that budget, whether it's $70, just try it out. I'm gonna spend $10 a day for the next 7 days. I'm gonna promote this post. And if you've been doing it 2 years, who really rocks with you, right? Like, who's really gonna buy the vintage, that's a whole like unique space, right?
Yeah, like its own little community. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is I have a homeboy, he just started, I think it's One Up Clothing.
Oh
And
yeah, so the homeboy, he's from Oakland.
yeah,
Yeah, so I know him too.
yeah. So that's my homie, and he just started that with another guy. So just getting with people who are in your community to do collabs and things like that. But I think just spending a little bit, man, just do that, and it'll take you a long ways, because you have to pay to play, really, you do, or it's going to be the slow growth. But you got to have that budget there, even if it's a little. It goes a long ways. Trust me. Like, I haven't spent a lot on that page, and it's already up to 14,000.
Yeah, that's a good tip. And then I had another question, if that's
Yep.
okay.
Mhm.
I've also been interested in PR for a career choice. So I was thinking about going into internships and stuff like that, and have an appointment tomorrow to find out how to apply for internships and things like that. In your experience with PR, do you think it's a good career choice? And if you with your experience working with people in PR through your company?
Yeah, I think PR is definitely a good career choice. I think you have to, in PR, from what I've learned over the years, is like you really have to be in that sales role and really sell the story, and then you have to be in that connection. Like, so those are your two playgrounds. Like, if you're really well connected, you can pick up the phone and call so and so to get your client on to such and such. Like, that's truly like where the space is, right? Or you're selling this idea or your client to this newspaper or this magazine or this blog or whatever it is. So you have to have that sales hat on. So those are the two worlds that you really have to exist in to do PR right.
Right, because just doing this the vintage thing, it's something that I've gotten a lot of experience through, as far as like communicating, and you've got to really build that community with your buyers. And I was also a manager for about 2 years at a skate shop, so it was just like all these things and putting it together for I'm a comms major. With comms, it's just very open-ended. Like, you can do so much with it, and I just
so much.
made a decision to do it because it's so you can kind of play around with it a lot. So that's why I was just curious about PR, just because it seems something more like in route for me, the way I do things.
Yeah. And the other thing is like, just getting inside your niche, which is, kind of hard. I've learned that here in Sacramento, it's very, I call it banjos and landscape. Like, there's when you think of artists here, for a long time it was just like landscape artists and people who painted like banjos and things like that. I think that same exists on the PR side right now.
Okay.
There's not truly like a solid PR agency that deals in like the vintage industry.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not necessarily that I'm looking for it to be in like vintage itself. It's just with the experience doing PR and finding either like an agency or in-house, either way. Just kind of that's why I kind of want to do the internship, just because it can be a good experience for me to just kind of feel out the career.
Yeah. And that's the thing that you'll find is like there's some PR agencies, but a lot of them do state work, or they'll do like, government things. And so you just got to know like where you want to fit into that, you know, and if that feels right to be doing PR for an energy company, you know, there's
Yeah.
that's still some of the things that lack around here is like, you know, PR for creative agencies or, you know, creative people. It still kind of lacks in the area, but there are some dope PR firms that deal with like more policy stuff, and that's probably what you'll find here a lot. So
Yeah, well,
just be prepared for that.
yeah. I appreciate you. Yeah, but yeah, thank you for answering my questions.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Awesome. So we're at the 6 o'clock hour here.
Already?
So we time flies when you're having fun, I guess, right? But no, I wanted to just first off thank you again for coming and just sharing your experience with us. Just so much great knowledge shared, and for me, just great passion for our city and region. So couldn't be more thankful for the work that you do. We got our asks as a community for how we can support you. So we will be subscribing to that newsletter. I'm throwing your website into the chat right now. We're going to be following Unseen Heroes HQ, and we're going to be checking out the physical location here on 35th and Broadway. So thank you again for everyone that's here. We will be sharing this recording, and we'll be doing just a little bit of editing and putting it on our website as a resource. So thank you again. Appreciate your time, and have a great one. So thank you all for being here.
Everybody. I appreciate you guys for your time, and
Thanks, everyone.
look forward to connecting.
All righty. Have a great one. Thank you all.
All right, peace.
Bye-bye.